now look to Martin Daubney to continue the case for the opposition.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam President, for this humbling invite. Thank you so far to my annoyingly skillful adversaries who have taken a lot of the thunder out of my speech. You introduced me as a wanker, and that's true. I introduced myself that to school kids. I've spoken to about 35,000 teenagers across the UK now about pornography and its damaging effects. I went on that journey after editing Loaded magazine, and I tried to face up to some of the allegations of what Loaded represented, the theories you talk about over here, the white working classes being at the bottom of education stack. That's not something that I've Googled, that's my life. I'm a coal miner's son from Nottingham. I'm the first boy in my family to ever make it to university. I come from humble origins. I made it to the top in the media, and then I used my voice to begin campaigning. I began campaigning on men's mental health because of gravely serious and tragic consequences that affected my life. My uncle Derek committed suicide when I was 14. Then I lost a good friend, Nobby, and I'm going to another funeral next week of my friend. I just want to say his name in here, Pete Cashmore. He took his own life, aged just 45. This is real stuff that affects in a real harmful way. And I think, while I absolutely concur, in 2019, we should not be honouring and obeying men. Those times are gone. But have we gone too far by labelling masculinity as toxic, by throwing this into constant antagonistic and warlike lexicon? The media script is dominated by this hostile language around men, and it has a real impact on how men think. I get this face-to-face from the mums of teenage boys who feel disconnected, they feel unwanted, they feel hated. Is it time to just call a truce on this and actually look to a more equal future where we can help men who are struggling without blaming the men at the bottom, because the men at the top have got all the power, so screw the men at the bottom. It's just not fair. So I've walked the walk. This is the life that I live, and I come here with a lot of experience of the work I've done. I've co-authored the biggest academic study into men's mental well-being and masculinity in the UK. It's called the Harris Masculinity Report. I presented those findings in Parliament in 2017. That study was replicated in the USA in 2018. This is over 10,000 men. And then I did another research project using a listening bot, using AI to talk to men about their true inner kind of anxieties of what it means to be a man. So I come here today having spoken to many, many thousands of men in a unique way. And I want to tell you some of the things that they told me. So let's talk about the three rules of masculinity, the three central pillars of masculinity, as defined by my good friend Martin Seeger, who is the chair of the Male Psychology Network and the founding running agent of the Samaritans in London, who redefined the suicide program of how we talked to men. Rule 1, to be a fighter and a winner. Rule 2, to be a provider and a protector. Rule 3, to retain mastery and control. If men have those three things in their life, they're happy bunnies. Remove 1, they're in trouble. Remove 2, they struggle. Remove 3, they're in grave peril. I want to talk about how traditional masculinity has been very useful for society, particularly when men go and fight and die in our wars. Now, let's talk about World War I, the biggest act of war in our time. 1 million men initially volunteered, and when they were killed, compulsory conscription was brought in for men, not for women. They were spared that fate. 700,000 men died in the mud. What did they have in common? They couldn't vote. They also couldn't vote. The Representation of the People Act, when it came in, it has been airbrushed out of history that men also took a part in this. When World War I ended, it was deemed inconceivable that these men who died didn't actually have the power to vote. Now we know that 8 million women gained the right to vote. How many people in here can tell me how many men also gained the right to vote? Take a guess. 5 million. You've done your research. Correct. 5 million men. Right? But the point is, they're missing from this script. Why? because we have become normalised to men being expendable. And this conversation still frames how we talk about men tonight. Let's also talk about how traditional masculinity makes the world run. Men occupy the huge majority of the most dangerous jobs on the planet. 97% of workforce fatalities are men. Yet we hear no calls for gender quotas in the lumberjack industry, the sea trawling industry, or logging. I'll tell you a joke by Billy Connolly, the comedian. He said, "Have you heard there's demands to rename manhole covers into personhole covers?" And he said, "Well, when I see a woman going down a manhole cover to clean a sewer, I'll call it a personhole cover. Until then, it's a fucking manhole cover." On to some serious stuff about the research that I did. We asked thousands and thousands of men what made them happy, what gave them contentment, and what gave them positive mental index. And the overriding fact is that traditional roles work for men. The most content men in America and the UK work more than their wives, have stable relationships, old-fashioned lifestyles, and it works for them. In the world's most equal societies, in the Scandinavian bloc, across Finland and Norway, where gender equality has been an experiment for years, women choose feminine roles, teaching, nursing, and men choose to be engineers when they are given the most choice. People choose traditional roles because they like it. It works for them. Also, the absence of positive masculinity damages society. You've already said 95% of prisoners are men. 85% of those men come from fatherless homes. 90% of gang members come from fatherless homes. These are men missing positive masculinity. We talk about suicide, a grave topic. When you talk to these men about why they're doing this, you know, they are half as likely to seek help, yet 3 times as likely to do it. And then we blame toxic masculinity. Well, that's just victim blaming in my eyes. And why is it that women are twice as likely to try to take their own lives? They're not as successful at it because men choose different methods. But we wouldn't blame women for being toxic. We would empathise with them and ask them, well, how can we help? Yet we don't do the same for men. Men suicide because they have relationship breakdown. Separated men are 6 times more likely to take their own lives. And oftentimes we see this is because of punitive court systems. 90% of child custody goes to mothers. I go to meeting groups of families need fathers and listen to desperately suicidal men who just want to be fathers. They want to be positive men, and the system prevents them from doing it. Likewise, poverty kills, not patriarchy. The poorest men are 10 times more likely to kill themselves. And yet we label these men as toxic, and it's unhelpful. Finally, we live in a world where we quite rightly encourage women, I've got a daughter, I've got a son, do what you want, be who you want to be. Yet why are we saying tonight, men, don't be traditional? Why are we saying that you're not allowed to be a man of a certain way? Absolutely concur. Masculinity should expand. You know, we should look at new ways of being a man. I would love to get more men involved in teaching, in nursing, make it cool to care. I've been around Scandinavia talking to stay-at-home dads. I became a stay-at-home dad myself. These are progressive, beautiful men, but they should coexist with traditional men. Let's just embrace every way of being a man and not demonize a certain way of being a man because we don't like it. That's not how it works. It's not fair. So I would urge you to vote for the men tonight. Vote for positive masculinity, and please vote for me. You probably won't, but thank you. Cheers.